I have no family up here now. It's just me and, what. But I always say that the church here is my family.
Now we're ready.
Now we'll get ready.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for joining us on the episode 6 of the Elkville Christian Church podcast. I'm Jake.
And I'm Jordan.
And tonight we get the privilege of interviewing Miss Thelma Viernum. Hello, Thelma.
Well, I feel honored that, that you would want to hear what little bit my life has been like.
Well, before we get started, Jordan has some questions for you to help us get warmed up.
You ready?
Go ahead.
Ready?
All right. What is your favorite food?
Chocolate cake.
Chocolate cake.
Another dessert.
Yeah. All right. What is one movie you could watch on repeat?
Oh, goodness. Not really. I mean,
Favorite book?
You're asking me questions in that. The Bible.
Oh, perfect.
Good answer. All right. The Beatles, Beach Boys, or Elvis Presley?
Well, really, it would be all three of them. But the favorite would be, I guess, Elvis.
Now, I happen to know for a fact that Elvis sang to you not too long ago.
Yes, I did.
Okay. If you could visit any era, time period, what would it be?
Maybe the future.
The future. Okay. Any particular reason?
Well, I've already lived the past,
Okay.
and it's just a matter of in between now to going to the place where it'll always be.
Mm-hmm.
There won't be any changes, there won't be any deaths, there won't be sadness, and all. We'll just be there with Jesus. The reason that we were born was to worship and serve Him.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I don't ever think about going forward. I always think about going back. All right, past, present, or future, if you could have dinner and a conversation with any person, who would it be? Anybody.
It would be my son.
Okay.
I had two sons, and I would like to talk to him.
Okay.
For the simple reason that he took his own life. We had no idea. He lived out west, and we didn't know anything about from the time he left home and that, but somewhere along the way, he got sidetracked or something other. We don't know. That's why I would love to talk to him and find out where or what or, what caused it, because he was raised a Christian. He was and that until he left, home, and he was still involved. And that's what seems so strange to us. That
How long ago was that?
34 years ago.
What was his name?
His name, no, it wasn't 34 to 24, because his name was Richard Jr.
Yeah, unfortunately, being a Christian doesn't absolve us of suffering,
That doesn't, no.
And if it was 30-something years ago, we've, as a society, have come a long way about talking about mental health and stuff like that. And
he was married, but divorced. He had no children or anything, and so I don't know. But that has been on my mind all the time.
Sure.
Wondering where or what or happened, because he was a Christian boy, a Christian man, until, as far as we do, even when he left to go, as an adult and that. But it was during the Vietnam War
Did he serve?
No, he didn't pass the physical. But when he was in college, they had professors that was teaching those young men and that how to get, to escape having to go to war or even go into the service. And that had a lot of impact on him because,
Did he want to serve or?
No, he didn't believe, that he would have went and done, but it wasn't what he wanted to do.
Well, that's a.
So, but he wasn't the only one.
All right.
And another thing that I think maybe might have had an impact on him was he was with some of them that thought that they could get into Canada, but they hitchhiked, got there, and they weren't allowed to get in. So all of that they had prepared and everything, and from that time on, it was just like, so that takes care of that question.
Interesting.
That's definitely something. That's I definitely think that you just never really know what some people are going through.
And he wasn't one to discuss stuff,
Most of us, I would say, aren't.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't think that people would understand. But nowadays, like I said, I feel like we're a lot better as a society.
Yeah.
But I'm very sorry that you had to go through that.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah, thank you.
But there, on the other hand, our other son, he wasn't old enough. He just turned 18 the time that the draft and all that was over with, so he missed it. But I had 4 brothers in the service in World War II, well, in Vietnam and that, but so, anyhow, that takes care of that.
Yeah. If you could be president for a day, what would be the first thing you would do?
Get rid of the politicians.
Amen.
Yep. You got to vote for me. If you could do something different, like, I don't know, be an astronaut or...
Oh, dear.
What would your dream job be?
I would like to be something other that I could help children.
Okay.
I've done a lot in my lifetime. I have volunteered, I have taught, I have lived, with a big family. And there's so many of the kids that are just thrown away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're brought into the world not on their own choice or anything, and yet so many of them, especially nowadays, that are just neglected and abused, and that's not what it's supposed to be.
All right, we'll go ahead and read our Bible verse that kind of sums up what we're trying to accomplish with these episodes.
The wisdom series, as we're calling it.
The wisdom series.
Gotta have a good tagline. All right, this is Proverbs chapter 1, verses 1 through 7. Their purpose is to teach people wisdom and discipline, to help them understand the insights of the wise. Their purpose is to teach people to live disciplined and successful lives, to help them do what is right, just, and fair. These proverbs will give insight to the simple, knowledge and discernment to the young. Let the wise listen to these proverbs and become even wiser. Let those with understanding receive guidance by exploring the meaning in these proverbs and parables, the words of the wise and the riddles. Fear of the Lord is the foundation of true knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline.
It says right there, to gain wisdom, you have to go out and find it. And so we're going to try to glean some wisdom from you this evening and try to understand what you have to tell us.
You boys are going to have to speak up a little bit more.
No, not a problem. I don't talk loud at all, so We can definitely do that.
All right, we'll do that. All right. Now, this is you're never supposed to ask a lady her age, but I'm going to go ahead and fall on that sword and ask you how old you
I
are.
have a problem with it.
Perfect.
Oh, that's even better.
It's never bothered me, isn't it?
Well, how old are you?
95 and a half.
I got to say that is probably going to blow everybody's minds that you're 95.
I would have been way off. I would have given you like late 70s.
I mean, I've never...
What's your secret?
Yeah, what do you do?
There's no secret. I just take every day, live the best I can. I've lived a Christian for most of my life. I believe in helping other people, but also letting them help you. Because we have to love and live together. And that is not an easy job sometimes, isn't it?
No, it sure is.
But you just have to do the best you can and learn, you know. I said, I think a lot of mine is from the fact that I grew up in a large family. My mom had 14 kids.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot of children.
And I never, ever heard her complain about anything. She loved more than there could ever be.
So where all those 14 kids live? Where were you born?
I was born in West Frankfort.
Okay.
Most of them, I was number 5 from the top.
Okay.
And all the rest of them was born in Ziegler. And that's where I grew up, in Ziegler.
Okay.
And a major learning was that if it hadn't have been for the people of Ziegler, we would have had a much harder life. My dad worked, you know, but back in those days, and they came from Tennessee and Kentucky and back, you know, and almost all of those people back in those times had big families, 8, 9, you know.
Yep.
And just, you know. But we had a good life. But like I said, it was the people in Ziegler and the church people that helped us. My dad died and left my mom with a 6-month-old child, which would be number 7, that she would have to help raise from the and so we just pulled together and, you know, let everybody help, and in return we helped other people as well.
Yeah.
Well, they say it takes a village.
That's what I've always said. I said it takes a village to raise a child and to help a family.
So what did your father do for work?
He was a farmer to begin with, but then he got jobs like when they started to, I want to say they didn't build Crab Orchard Lake, but when all of that work was going on, he worked in the munition plant during the war. He finally owned a feed store, which was good business. He had a feed store in Ziegler, and then I don't know what caused him to get out of that business, but then he had a gas station, a filling station.
Sounds like he was a jack of all trades.
Kind of like, yeah. And he went ahead and farmed. I mean, we had, you know, gardens and stuff like that. But there again, you know, we had we had help, and we grew up learning that we had chores to do. And every one of us had stuff that we had to do. And I probably started working babysitting when I was about maybe 12, 13 years old. And we would babysit. I did housework. I did all kinds of jobs and that, as I grew up. I was the first one to go through high school.
What year did you graduate?
I graduated in 47. But I made sure that all of my brothers and sisters after me went to high school.
Okay.
My dad told me, he said, you don't need to go to school. Girls don't need to go to high school and get that. I said, this is one girl that's going to go.
Absolutely.
I made absolutely positive that every one of my brothers and sisters after me graduated from high school.
So what did you guys do for fun?
One thing that I always think about, we would take like pet milk cans or some kind of a lubricant and take it and mash it on, I don't know how to explain it. Put it down and then stomp into it where it would bend in to match your shoe or your foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we would, walk those. We made our own baseballs, and we just did all kind of things in that. And we always had a bunch of neighbor kids, and I mean, my mom used to laugh and say that when she knew that all the kids was in, she said she would just open the door and holler, "Come on in, kids." And she said when we got a house full and that, she knew. But we always had neighbors' kids, and I mean, even though,
So you all had friends and would bring them home, and
we had lots of music.
Yeah.
All the time. My brothers, I played the guitar for probably 50 years.
Really?
No kidding.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I started, from learning from them, and I couldn't even, I had to just sit and lay the guitar across my lap like this and play it kind of like the steel guitars and that, and like the things.
Can you still play?
No.
No.
It's been, I don't know. But yeah, I played, and every time, the neighbors always said that every time they knew that the Null kids was at home is back because you could hear the music. There was somebody always music and dancing and singing and playing and goofing off, and the doors would be open and all the neighbor kids would come. I mean,
that's great. So was it your mom and dad that were musically inclined as well, or just you and your...
Oh, yeah. My dad, okay. And my mom played the guitar some, but not much in that. But back when it was, because just about everybody back in those days, especially coming from the South, played, and then all of my brothers. And I was the only one out of, there was 8 of us girls, and I was the only one out of the 8 that...
That's cool. That's very cool.
I used to play in the church, and my oldest son that passed away in that, he had a band of his own and that, and we used to play, and stuff like that.
So you were a kid when World War II started, right?
Yeah. See, I think, I was born in 29. I think that other day I figured I was like 13 years old, maybe, whenever.
Do you remember?
Sounds about right.
Do you remember where you were when Pearl Harbor was bombed?
Oh, yes. I had there was 3 of us girls. I was the oldest, and the other 2, and we were together all the time. I mean, where one went, the 3. But anyhow, we when we was growing up in Ziegler, we lived, and my dad and our family got acquainted with the two young men that opened up a theater there in Ziegler. And we lived just down the street from where they had, and my dad, that was another job that he got. And we all helped. We cleaned the theater and took care of everything. And by doing that, we got to go in to see the movies free.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
And so, well, you know, especially Sundays, we've always went on Sundays after church in the afternoon and then. And so the three of us had been to church, to movies, and as we came out, we saw a lot of people that was just like they were crazy. They were crying. They was running all over and everything. And that's when we found out that they had declared war on Pearl Harbor.
Oh, wow.
And we lived, I don't know how, anyhow, but the last street in Ziegler going out toward West Frankfort. That we lived in that area, in that house. And so we were right at the drugstore on Main Street in Ziegler when we heard that the war had started, and we started crying like everybody else and took off running. And we cried and run all the way home and found, when we got in the house, we found my dad. We had a radio that was run by batteries back that time. And him and my mom, and I don't know, some of the kids was all gathered around. And that was one of the few times that I ever saw my dad cry, because we had two boys, our oldest brother and another one just coming up. And when we got home and went in and found them all gathered around the radio and that, and it wasn't long until our oldest brother come in and he told us, he said, I'm headed, I'm going to hitchhike to go to St. Louis to join the Army. And so he grabbed him some clothes and whatever and took off that night. And that was one of the first, about the only time I ever saw my dad cry. And my mom, she was just hysterical in that. But he went, and he served, and then I had, all together, I had four brothers, three of them in the Navy and one in the Air Force.
Did they get to come home from the war?
Yeah.
Did they? Good.
So did it change your life? I mean, for everybody else at home, were you really involved in the war effort? The stuff we hear about, like collecting scrap metal and donating
how big
materials to help facilitate the war effort, was that a big deal?
Yeah, we did everything possible in that, and
So where did you work?
And I remember when the war was over with, we were peeling peaches, because my mom and them, we canned just like so many other country people, Mm-hmm. But we were peeling peaches that afternoon. And when the cars all started honking and driving up and down the streets, and we knew what was it, we just got up and left everything. And my dad, we got in the car in that, and we drove along, and the rest of them just honking and hollering and cheering and everything. And then
that would have to be a unbelievable feeling to know that was over with, and especially if you had family coming home. Did you ever get to see them during the combat time? Did they ever come home at all?
No.
Okay.
Once they left to go in the war itself, active duty and that, no. Okay. And one of them had a battleship shot out from under him twice. But they never got serious injuries or anything in that. So
was your family raised up as Christians? Did you go to church when you were little?
We went to church, yes, yeah. I grew up in the Baptist church at Ziegler
Okay.
until I got, I don't know, 17 or 18 years old, and then I got the idea that, I swear I didn't need to go to church anymore. That's a lenient, But the thing of it was that when you missed, everybody in town knew it, and they was always, where were you? Why wasn't you at church and that? But it didn't take very long, me being out of church, until I knew that I had to, I needed to be back and was back. So from that time on, and from the time I grew up and got married and went up to Chicago area, and I don't know exactly, but anyhow, until I moved back down here and started, going to the church, I had been going to 4 different churches. We had been 4 different churches, and the longest one up north was Church of God, and it was a lot like what we have here right now in that. But we moved, when we retired, I worked 33 years in office and retired, and my husband worked 43 years on the railroad. The only job he ever had left when he left Southern Illinois.
Really?
And he was just, anyhow, just a young boy. Well, he had graduated high school and that, but he went north because he had brothers that went up there and got jobs working for the railroad. He applied for a job in that, and they was going to put him on a jackhammer. And then they said, you can't handle that, Jack, because, he was just a normal young man. He was muscled and everything because he grew up working on the farm, doing farm work, and they left, now you'll never be able to. And he said, I showed them, and he, so he started, and he graduated. When he retired in that, he was supervisor in the department where they installed the flashing gates. Not flashing gates. Gates don't flash. They lights flash. But and he graduated, and so he retired at 43, and I had 33, and then we come back to Southern Illinois.
All right. So you said you retired after 33 years, and your husband at 43.
And you both worked at the railroad?
No, I worked in an office for one of the biggest Italian bakery outfits. There was like 5 different bakeries. It was all like family, and they were Italians.
This was in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
And you moved to Chicago after high school?
Yeah. Well, I worked. I graduated in 46. No, and in 47. And I got married in 49. He was already up there. He had been working a year, and up there and waiting for, at that time, to find an apartment was just absolutely, it was like looking for gold in
needle in a haystack.
Yeah, it was hard finding an apartment, and when he found one, well, then we got married, and I moved up there, and we raised our 2 boys.
What was your husband's name?
Richard Leonard.
Richard Leonard.
And
how did you 2 meet?
At the skating rink at Ziegler. Every summer in the park, they had a portable skating rink put up, and it was big, and it was great. It was wonderful. People come from all around the little towns, and he grew up in Royalton.
Okay.
And I said, we met at a skating rink, going round and round, and we had, 20. We had 9 days to being married, 54 years. and he died of a heart attack. And I laughed and I said, well, we met going around and around, and we spent 54 years still going around and around.
So at the skating rink, who was chasing who? Were you chasing him, or was he chasing you?
Well, we just took turns. But the thing of it was, one of the times, always at the end of the evening and that, they play the one song, and all of the couples, get this close together, and he had just given me his senior class ring, and he put it was so big it had to put it on my thumb. And as that romantic music was, and we were skating, and the front wheels on my skates come loose for some reason or other, and we both fell.
Uh-oh.
And messed up my thumb, and I never got that ring off of the thumb because of the thumb swelled and everything. And so that's how it all started.
Very nice.
So then you two moved up to Chicago pretty quickly after that, after you got married?
Yeah.
And you had your kids up there, your boys?
Yeah.
Did they go to school up there, obviously?
Yeah.
So what was Chicago like in that time? Was it a pretty neat place to live?
I loved it, yeah.
I mean, I didn't know growing up in the country and then going to Chicago.
Well, see, I loved it in that.
Okay.
And it took him a while, but because of the fact that he had a good job, and it was the kind of work that, he could never worked in an office or anything like that, because he was a country boy, a farm boy.
How did he take the move? Was he okay with it too?
Well, he was the one. Yeah, he lived up there and worked. It was almost a year from the time that he left and went up to get a job at that, because the understanding was as soon as he could find an apartment, that we could afford, well then, and that's what happened in that.
So you guys went to church up there?
Oh yeah, Baptist Church, Church of God, Methodist, Christian. We went to 4 different churches up there before we really found the Church of God, and that's where we were going and that. And then when we came down here and that, my sister, B and Bob Burner, you guys probably don't know them and that, but my sister and her husband was born here.
Okay.
And that's how we got started. But I think within the first year that we lived here, and I got started first, and then Leonard followed me, and he started in that, and from that time on, and it was 33 years. 33 years that we, from the time we moved here and that we started going to church here. And
so what part of Chicago did you live in?
It was the south side.
Okay.
Yeah. We were, I don't know, maybe 20 miles or so from Hammond, Indiana border.
Okay.
It was the south side of Chicago where we lived.
Gotcha.
Because that's where the railroad, and Indiana Harbor Belt was the name of that railroad station. I mean, it was, and every train that went across the United States had to, at one time or other, come and cross there in that. It was huge.
Is it still there?
Yeah.
Because I'm not familiar with Chicago much at all, but the few times I've been through there on my way to Wisconsin to work, the interstate cuts across, and there is a huge rail yard down there with just, biggest rail yard I've ever seen. I don't know if it's the same one or not, but
I don't know, but that's what, that's what the history was, that every train that went from east to west and at one time or other had to come through that, and it was a huge, All
right, so then you moved back to Elkville. What years was that when you moved back from Chicago anyway?
So it was 90 and 91.
So did you come straight back to where you're living now, or did you move around much when you come back south, or did you find a place and...
No.
All right.
We moved back, and we bought a motorhome, 28 foot, and we parked it behind B and Bob Berner's business that was right out on the highway out here. It's, well, it's right out of town in that. And we lived there until we could find a place to live. So instead of renting or anything, we had this house built.
Okay.
The one you live in now?
We were living behind their place, hooked up to their electric and all of that until our house was built.
Wow. And then you started coming to Elkville Christian Church at that time?
Yeah.
And were you familiar with this church before then?
No.
Okay.
So who was the pastor then?
Tim Davis.
Tim Davis. Okay.
Yeah. Just to tell you what kind of a life we had and that, and I'm bragging about it, considering how and what kind of a home life and everything, and that time, having a big family that I came from. Mm-hmm. My mom did sewing. She made all of our clothes and everything, and stuff like that. So, when I graduated grade school, I got a new dress for graduation, but I didn't have any shoes. And, of course, it was summertime, so I needed the white shoes to go along. Mm-hmm. Had a sister that lived in West Frankfort. She said, don't worry, sis. She said, I'll bring you a pair of mine. She hitchhiked the afternoon that I graduated 8th grade. She hitchhiked and brought me a pair of her dress shoes so that I would have the type of shoes to go with the new dress.
Wow.
But anyhow, I was going to tell you that he came from 8 kids. And through our work and everything, he never missed a day, and I never missed but anyhow, this house that we got now is the 3rd brand new house that we had in our marriage.
Wow.
The first house we bought was $15,000. It was a corner lot, all brick, basement, hardwood floors, the whole 9 yards and that. We borrowed $500 from his mom to put a down payment on to have that house. It was almost completely built by the time we found it and decided it, that we wanted it. So we went ahead, and then that's when, at the time when the black people started moving in, and the white people just went crazy.
Yeah.
And they was just moving out and everything.
Was that in Chicago?
Yeah, a suburb. It was Harvey, Illinois.
Harvey, Illinois, okay.
And one family, black family, would move in somewhere all in the area, and the crazy white ones, instead of staying where there wouldn't be any empty houses, if they had that big of a problem, and it was a problem between the whites and the blacks and that.
So that would have been what time frame? What decade? 50s or 60s?
50s or 60s?
Yeah, it would have been around 50. I think we was up there and had an apartment a couple of years before we found a house and it wasn't quite completely finished yet. It was like, we got to pick different things, and the house itself was all completed, but like the tile in the kitchen and the carpeting and stuff like that, and we borrowed $500 from his mom. and to help pay down payment and that. And then from that time on, then we paid $15,500 for that brand new house. The brick, like I said, basement, brick all around. And then when the population got so bad that, like I said, between the blacks and the whites, and I said the crazy whites, if they had stayed in their own home, they wouldn't have had that problem. You know, we didn't have a problem because our boys were the first ones in the school that had black friends, and our neighbors and that, some of them, I mean, they really went crazy because we let the kids all come and play, you know, the blacks and whites together. Kids, you know.
That sounds so foreign to us because, I mean, we grew up, race is not a problem at all. Like, it was not a problem at all. And then I listened to even my dad talk about, because he went to grade school in Florida, and they had a segregated school. I guess they moved down at the time of desegregating the school. Yeah. And he said it was just, lunchtime was just a war room. You know, it'd be peaceful for a few minutes, and then someone would say something, and then it was just an uproar.
And I said, you know what? Some of the best friends that we had were black people like that.
It's such a crazy thing to hate somebody for the color of their skin.
You're right.
And you know, idiots come in all shapes and sizes and skin colors. That's not
right.
You know, if you're a bad person, you're a bad person. But
the place where I worked in that, the man that was over all of the mechanics, we had like 30 some odd routes. And the little guy that was a head mechanic over all of those, he was a black guy. And I forgot he had a nickname, but I can't remember now what it was. But he was the only black ones there. Yeah. And when I started working there, and we just, I don't know, they had to come to me, the drivers had to come to me on paydays to get, we paid them through the office, you know, and so they would come to get their payday, their paycheck and that through me and that. And so this little guy and that, he'd always come, and some reason or other, he took a liking to me, and I treated him just like I did everybody else. I mean, you know.
That's probably why.
And so the first Christmas, when we got ready to dismiss for the night and for the weekend and that, and he came to my desk in the office, and he's all smiles and that, and he had a little package, all gift wrapped and everything, and he says, "Miss Thelma," he said, "I got something for you," and he had it behind. He gave it to me, and he said, "I want you to have this," because he said, "You always smell so you always smell so nice," and he said, "You are always so good to me, and I just wanted to give you this for." He said, "Open it up." I opened it up. It was a bar of soap. At that time, there was a new kind of bath soap coming out, and it was, I don't know exactly how to, anyhow, it had a special shape to it, and it was pink, and oh, it did smell good at that. And so that's what he gave me for my Christmas. That meant more to me than anything. And he says, "You just treat me so nice and that."
Wow.
I never will forget that.
I'd say not. That's something.
I never did use the bar of soap and that. I always just kept it as a souvenir, you know.
Do you still have it?
No. I moved too many times. No.
Thelma, do you have any advice for us? Marriage advice?
Oh, Lord.
Well, we're both, young fellows and married and
Yes.
young children, and
Yeah.
we could always use some advice.
You have, Lord, help me, Lord. But it's hard. Well, you know that yourself.
Yeah.
Being married is not, when you're really sincere and you love each other and that, you have to learn to forgive. And a lot of times you have to do things that you don't like to have to do in order, and just if you intend to make a go of it and that, it's just from day to day and that.
So hard work is expected.
Yeah, and don't ignore or don't remember that you are husband and wife as a team, and should not be a boss. You have to work together, and sometimes that gets, both of you are grinning already.
Yeah, it's.
But really, I don't think one couple can give advice to another one because everybody's different. I come from all those kids.
Mm-hmm.
I swore to myself that I'd never get married because I just knew, a young kid, my mom never took time to tell us anything and that, so, but we just, but I no, I'm not getting married because you get married, you're going to have kids and that. And so whenever we did decide to get married and that, I said, let's get this straight. One thing right now, 2 kids, 2, no more than 2. So he was agreed with it and that, so we made sure that.
I couldn't wrap my head around, 4 children, let alone 14. That's just...
But, and you know what, a thing about that too, saying, okay, there's 14 of us. Most people thinks 14 altogether.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't realize that as the older ones get, they leave home and a new,
Well, I'm a little familiar with that, I guess. My grandma come from a family of 20 kids. And so that's exactly what she would talk about was the older ones helped out the younger ones. And there were only maybe 6 or 7 at a time living at home.
That's all, huh?
Yeah.
But seriously, it does. And then they lived on a farm too. So, you had to have, you got to have people to run a farm.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I guess you're right. You say 14. It's not like you had 14 Milas or Danes or Gracies running around at the same time, but it's spread out.
We had a wonderful life.
well, even with our kids, Dane is 4, but he is already when the other siblings come along, they just something happens internally and they all of a sudden flip a switch and they're big sibling. And you can, he helps, he wants to help out, he'll get stuff started.
The older ones helps take care.
And you start to think, man, there's all kinds of stuff he can do around here.
Put him to work.
My baby brother died let's see, a month ago. The last one that, of the boys.
I'm sorry to hear that.
End of this month, he would be 70 years old.
Now, did you guys all go separate ways, or did you all live around here, or were they still...
I was the only one that left home and stayed away. The rest of them, they went to 3 different places and that, but they just stayed for a while and they couldn't handle living, like that. So they all came back to the area and got jobs, and they all had good jobs with mining and different things like that. And this boy here that just died in that, he had he was a body offender man. He had a really good business over in Ziegler that he learned. He's one that was in the Air Force.
Okay.
And 6 years, and he never left the States. He was stationed all that time in Florida.
Really?
By Cape Canaveral or whatever it was there. And that's where he learned his trade.
Oh, doing the sheet metal?
He worked on the big officer, the generals and all of those in the Air Force there. He was one that worked on their automobiles and kept them running on that particular base where he was in that.
All right, so with all that being said, do you have any advice about raising children?
Pray a lot.
Duly noted.
Yeah.
We will be sure to do that.
No, just love them and help them. I don't know. That just kind of comes natural in that, once you become a parent in that. Well, you guys know all of that.
Well, I'd say it. I mean,
Well, yeah, but the thing of it is, what's good for me or what happened, what I did, don't necessarily mean that that's the same advice or anything that you, because everybody has their own problems and situations, and some kids you love more than they, not really, but in a way, they're a little easier to get along with. Let's put it that way.
that's fair.
I mean, you can't love one child more than the other of your own kids, but. Yeah. Sometimes you want to take them.
I know what you mean by that, yeah.
But anyhow, so.
You mean they're not always angels?
So, as far as your personal Christian walk, can you tell us, you've been a Christian your whole life.
Yeah.
That's a pretty amazing testament in itself.
I've been baptized twice. I always heard that, that there was no need to be baptized more than one time. Mm-hmm. But there was a time, and now I was baptized when I was a teenager, like I said, when I was still at home. Okay. And then during the time when we moved retired and moved between Chicago and back down here, and it was about a year that we didn't really go to church in that, but once we got started, and I had that feeling that I needed to be baptized again. And I had heard, say, no, you don't baptize but once. So I talked to Tim, to the pastor, and I told him about it. And he said, Thelma, if you have that feeling that you feel like you need to be baptized again, he said, go and have it done. He said, there does not mean that you can't or don't need to in that. Because he said, when you kind of get away from the Lord and that, and I did. And so I talked to him, and he said, whenever you get ready, he said, I'll baptize you. So I did. And do you know that I cried? I probably cried about 3 or 4 hours off and on after I had been baptized that second time in it.
Wow.
It was just something that was just lifted,
See, I don't remember Tim a whole lot, if at all. I know he's been here maybe once or twice for like homecoming, but a lot of people were very fond of him.
Yeah, he was a good guy in that.
What do you have any spiritual discipline nowadays that?
Yeah, well, I read my Bible every night.
Obviously, you come to church. So you hear a lot.
There's not very many times that I miss unless it's something that I really, I either feel it's so bad that I don't, or that always came first.
Yeah.
And when I miss church, the few times that I miss, the whole week is messed up.
Yeah.
I agree with that. It's yeah.
Yeah.
It feels something just feels off. It's a little bit better now because we can watch the sermon online if we miss. Yeah. But there is nothing that will replace coming and meeting together and gathering together with other believers.
I had something to happen in my life. This was when we lived up north in that town called Harvey, which, there was a lady that she must have been, I don't know, she was maybe in her late 70s or 80s, I don't really know. She was an elderly lady, let's put it that way. She had been a Christian all her life, and she played the organ, and she played the piano and different things in this church of God that we went to. And that church, we had the railings where the people went, you go up there and kneel and pray, the railings and that. And she was always, her and her husband, they spent a lot of time up there and praying for everybody. That's one thing that I miss about here is, and it's been a long time, that people don't go up front to ask for prayer, or don't kneel and pray like we used to years ago in that. Yeah. But anyhow, getting back to this lady, church was coming to a close, and they had the altar call, and of course up there, and so many of them were Southern people anyhow, but the area all around the altar and that was just, sometimes there'd be 30, 40 people in that praying for each other or praying, and everything. And so, but this one particular Sunday, they had the prayer service in that, and everybody had went back to their seats, and then this lady, she got up and she went back up to the altar, and she knelt there, and she was praying and that, and she kept just kneeling up there, and after a long time we think, boy, she's really got, she's spending so much time up there. We kept waiting for her to get up and come back, and she never did. And they went after so long a time, and then they found out, that she wasn't praying in that. She went up there and she had died at the altar.
Wow.
I said, boy, how much better could you get than that?
Yeah.
Certainly.
She died there while she was praying.
Huh.
I'll never forget that.
Yeah, no, I don't think you would forget something like that. That's...
And she was a wonderful little saint, and that, she was...
Yeah, I don't think most of us will get that lucky.
Especially as often as I pray.
I missed not having any of the gospel music anymore. We used to always have the groups, the quartets, and all of that.
So what you're saying is you want the Masters men to do a little something on Sunday, or put a little special on maybe, huh?
I have told them. I have mentioned them. I was the one that I was on to Lyle for a long, long time about different.
Well, I happen to be close to one of them in particular, and I'll be sure to put in a good word, because I've been asking them to have a little reunion. So.
And we're supposed to mind our elders.
That's, yeah.
Yeah.
I will get on them.
Seems like that there's more time spent nowadays trying to find out entertainment, going places and doing this instead of having gospel singings or different things like that.
There isn't as much gospel music going around, that style of music going
That's
around
true.
anymore.
Amen.
You know,
brother,
it's just, I don't know if it's the changing of the times, but it's just not as, it's not not as prevalent.
And like, well, you know, like I said, everything sooner or later changes and that, but
I mean, we haven't experienced anything like that. I mean, it would be different to miss something that...
altar call.
Yeah.
How long's it been since we saw anybody in this church to go to the altar?
Yeah.
Or even have anybody to come and pray for them?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm, because of my age, and I have been through, you know, and that.
Sure.
That's what, to me, is kind of missing.
And perhaps maybe it was just the way you grew up. But to me, I'm not saying, I don't have really an opinion one way or the other about, not really an opinion, but a preference one way or the other. Mm-hmm. If somebody wants to come up and pray, I think they can. But me personally, like, if I needed somebody to pray for me, I would like reach out to Jake or one of my close friends or maybe a relative rather than go up there for all to see. Yeah, I don't know. To me, it's more of a private matter, and not that, you know, if somebody wanted to go up there and pray, that, you know, more power to them. But that's just not me.
I said, then that was, as I was growing up, and that was the main thing. And like, it was nothing to see one person head up there and a whole bunch of get up and follow them. That sometimes they're like 30 or 40 people all gathered around, you know, and sharing, you know.
Yeah, I've noticed my wife and I have moved around a little bit, and we went to a church in college, and then of course in St. Louis. We lived there for a few years, and church congregations have a character to them.
Yeah.
And there was definitely some more openness, vulnerability, I guess, if I can say it.
No, that's the right word.
To other congregations, and I think there's something to that. Like, we're a little bit different. Elkville Christian Church is a little bit more reserved, I think, in that.
Yeah.
But.
And like I said, you know, it's a lot of people don't want anybody else and interfering in their lives and that, you know. And I'm getting cold in here. And that's what makes the world go around and around.
And I don't know if it's so much, not that I don't want somebody to interfere. You know, Jerry and Faye and Jake and I kind of talked about it. It's community is not like it used to be. I think we're a little further apart than we used to be.
Yeah. In so many things in it.
Yeah, and I suppose to change that, for us to change that, we would need to be more open and
we would have to
vulnerable.
We would have to change, yeah.
Well, another thing too, you have a lot of people that just, I mean, they go out of their way to find out what's going on in other people's lives, and then, you know, it's just instead of, and that.
It's one thing to be involved in somebody's life because you want to help them.
Right.
And it's another thing to, I want to know what happened to so-and-so so I can, you know, gossip about it, and which is, Yeah. And maybe that's part of it. It's a little intimidating to get up there for an altar call, like, oh, did you see such and such went up there and prayed today? I wonder what they're struggling with.
Yeah. It's been a long time since anybody ever went here in our church and that up to the altar. I don't think there's been anyone since we've had the new church in the altar, you know, and that. But there again, you know, some people don't feel comfortable with it.
Well, you heard it here. If you feel like you need to go to the altar, it's okay. Mm-hmm. Miss Thelma says so. Go on up there.
Do you have anything else for us? Some more wisdom?
Did we cover everything you wanted to say?
Yes. I got P.S. I'm older, good life, so blessed, raised family, and have Jesus as my Savior.
Amen.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
That says it all.